Well folks, welcome to the latest video where we're going to dismantle this Cardinal Max 4 in these rather difficult and rather quiet times, unfortunately. Well, I do have a vaccination booked on April the 5th, and hopefully we'll start to see an end to this dreadful crisis. Anyway, this is not a news broadcast, so let's proceed. I guess you've all seen this type of reel before, where you essentially unscrew the reel mount through, and the reel just comes out, and it's on a hex. And this is a type of reel mount that's been in use for quite a while now, so most people are familiar with it. And there's nothing actually wrong with this particular screw. There's very little play here. There's virtually no play in this bit, so this is actually in pretty good condition, really. Now, it should be pointed out at this stage that we're also going to do a reassembly of the Cardinal Bronco. And the Cardinal Bronco is almost identical to this reel. The main difference is that it doesn't have a ball bearing. It has a bronze bearing instead of a ball bearing. So we undo these 4 screws here, and then we take the cap off, and it comes off pretty much the same way you expect most reels that come off. Attached to this reel, this is removable and replaceable. This essentially is the warning that your fish is running, and it goes onto this little cog just here, and it can be dismantled if you need to do so. So on this particular reel, let me just point out that these reel bodies are graphited plastic, and they do have a recess here. Inside that recess you have a bearing which is made from this very slippy plastic, and it's probably Teflon or something like that, and it sits inside the recess there, and that means that when the reel wears out a little bit, you can replace these, which is quite a good thing, because you couldn't do it on the other reels. It makes these reels a lot more recyclable. Okay, so next, the push button spool. This is pretty standard now, and I'm not going to take this apart because they very rarely break. There's very rarely really no reason to do that. As you can see, they're pretty robust, and they have been for a very long time. It's been a long time, since the 70s when they weren't, in fact. Inside here we have the spool nut, which comes off. I think it's a left-hand thread. I'll check that in a minute. When you reassemble this reel, you are supposed to push one of these tabs up, and I haven't done that because I'm going to take it apart for you. So that's the reason why. So the next off is just the key to getting this apart is this piece just there. I tend to use a spinner screwdriver once it's loose, and you don't have to copy me, of course, but it does help if you want to do it the same way. That brings the screw out, and there's a metal piece that lifts off just here. Once that's off, you pretty much. Okay, so once the little metal clip is out, that allows us to release the spool pin, which you can just pull out like so. It's worth noting a little detail here. This will now lift off, and you can see the recess just here. That fits round the spool pin, and you shouldn't be able to get this off without taking the spool pin out first. That little the metal clip just there, that is needed for the anti-reverse to work properly, and it goes inside that notch just there, so just remember that when you're putting it back. Okay, these two here, they should just fall off now. That's your cam rider and your cam. Okay, this particular spool just has a normal nut on it. It's not a left-hand thread. They can be sometimes, but it's not. Don't lose this washer because they can come loose sometimes. Right, so we take the top off, and inside this particular reel, we do have the anti-reverse has been actually inside the reel. Now that if you unscrew these 2 screws here, that will come away. So I'm going to take that piece off first. Okay, so under these screws here, that should now come away. Might need a little bit more work on the screw there. There you go. So that comes out. So this is the ball race here, and this is the main difference between the Max 4 and the Bronco. On the Bronco, this is a bronze bearing. On this one, it's a ball race. Okay, so what we've got left now, essentially, is the Bale Arm, which I'll show you in a minute, and the drag mechanism. So on these particular reels, this comes off with a screwdriver, and it lifts out, and there's a little clip, so you've got to get that clip off before you can do anything else. So it's best to get a screwdriver under the tip piece here, and then lever it out, and it comes off. So to get the rest of it out, generally speaking, you have to put this back on again and then screw it till it comes off. There you go, because it's threaded, as you can see there. And there's a spring inside there. Okay, so if you tip this up, you can get the drag mechanism out. It might be a bit sticky if it's been in a while. So I'll just go quickly through it. You've got your, this is the piece that screws down with the spring inside. The spring is loose and it does come out. And then you've got a drag washer in there. And then you've got a slotted washer. And then you've got what they call a flatted shaft washer. Another drag washer. And then a slotted washer. And another drag washer. So there's your sequence. So don't forget that when you put it back together. Okay, so one last piece on this reel. That does come off also. And you need to know that it goes that way there, with that slope facing that way when you put it back on again. Right, so the bale arm. Okay, so this is pretty standard in a lot of Abu reels. Your bale arm generally has a spring on one side, and the bale arm trigger is on the other side. This is fixed on with a circlip. It's pretty easy to remove that. Okay, so that's removed by hooking a screwdriver underneath there, or you can sometimes get a pair of pliers at a particular angle on it and take it off. So as you can see now, under here, this is the main bale arm spring. Okay, so looking at this, this centre pin does come out pretty easily, as you can see. It pops off. If you undo this screw, underneath here you have the hardened steel or tungsten guide there, and there's probably a little washer in there which stops the screw head from deforming the plastic, so it's important that you put that back. Also, these particular bale arms stay on with a twist like that, and they do come off, so they're not on particularly tight or anything like that. Alright, this section of the reel, and it's actually pretty good to see. There's just a single screw in there and a plate of plastic that goes over there. That bale arm springs now are pretty solid affairs. Look at the chunkiness on that. If you look at, say, an old KP Moritz reel from the 50s and 60s, they're much flimsier and they tend to, break pretty easily. There's also a screw here which I'm not really sure why that's on there. I think maybe it's a spare. That's all I can think of, because it doesn't seem to do anything. Right, so underneath this cover we should see the Bale Arm Trigger. You need to be careful with this one because it has a little hairline spring which can go flying off. You can just see it just there. Also, it's worth noting, do a little drawing or take a photo with your mobile phone or something, just exactly how it looks when it's on, so that you know how to put it back, because it is a bit of a peculiar shape. So that does come off. So just, you can see how that flick just there. It will go right across the room and you'll never find it. And this bit does come off too. Okay, one last thing. This is the drum washer there. You need this to stop the metal parts from starting to damage the plastic. So they are needed. Obviously, the way this washer is configured, it sits in a recess. When you fold one of these tabs up against the nut, the recess stops the nut coming loose. Not that that's ever been a particular problem with this kind of reel, as far as I know, but there you go. That's it. That completes our disassembly of the Cardinal Max 4. Now then, I have another reel here. This is the Bronco. It appears to be identical to the Max 4. There is a very slight difference in that the main bearing on the Bronco is a bronze bearing instead of a ball bearing. I'm going to try and show you the difference. Okay, so here we have a Cardinal Bronco. It's got a zinc cast power cog, and what you see there is actually a bronze bearing. It's not a ball bearing brace. And this is the one that we've just dismantled, the Cardinal Max 4. As you can see, spins much more freely, but the power cog's made of brass, which I guess is part of what you pay the extra money for. And but apart from that, if you look closely, they are pretty well interchangeable, so it looks like you can upgrade your Bronco with a bearing from a Max 4 if you wanted to. So there's the two parts side by side, and they do cross fit. I have checked, they do cross fit pretty well actually, and they're the same profile for the cogs and everything. Okay folks, so that brings us to the end of this little video, the disassembly of the Cardinal Max 4. Well, we're not going to do a reassembly of this particular reel, but we are going to do a reassembly of the Cardinal Bronco 4, which the bearing of which I've just shown you. So look out for that. That'll be along soon. And thanks very much for watching, folks.